Darren, I often think about leadership and revealing your leadership. And often we look at it with a very positive and optimistic outlook. But leadership isn't revealed on your best days or on your good days. Your leadership actually comes across really strongly when you're tired and frustrated and overwhelmed. Sometimes the leadership you show comes across on your worst day. We all have them. We all have really bad days. How do we deal with that? What's the playbook for managing our worst day?
Great question. I agree. It is revealed, right? It's easy to lead when things are going well, right? Or it should be relatively easy to lead, right? When things are going well. What we're going to kind of focus on today is your worst day. So that could absolutely be at the cause of something going on in your organization, but it could be at the cause of something going on in your family life, with your health. It could just be you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, right? And I think that sometimes are the ones, when there's the challenge, we can go into that heroic journey. Here's the big mountain we need to climb, and we can rally ourselves, rally the troops. And next thing we know, we're on the top of the mountain. Woohoo, look at us. Where it's sometimes that pebble in our shoe, while we're out for, what appears like it might be just a reasonable walk, all of a sudden has got us grumpy and yelling and swearing. And so that's going to be a little bit of our focus today, is not so much taking on the big challenge. It's you're having a really bad day for whatever that reason might be. And how do you take control of that so that at minimum, you don't make it worse? And I think that's always the first place to start. As a leader, if there's a crisis, don't make it worse. If you're in crisis, don't make it worse. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. So let's try and make this really practical for people listening in. What might be the early warning signals to yourself that you are heading into this bad headspace? It's a bit like a fire alarm in the house, right? And the fire alarm goes off, it tells you there's a fire. You don't pay attention to it, your house is going to burn down.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what's really important here is self-awareness. Knowing kind of you on your best day and also knowing you on your worst day. And sometimes it can be as simple as someone cracks a joke that you would normally laugh at and you don't laugh.
Yeah.
And when you know you're in that grumpy or a little bit less grumpy or more grumpy, whatever that is for you, is that emotional bandwidth is like a wool sweater in a dryer, right? It shrinks down and there's no elasticity left. That is often the first clue. For everyone, that feels a little bit different, but we all know what that feels like, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe there's a prompt that we can do a check-in with ourselves. I personally often say to myself, if I'm going into a situation, is how do I feel right now? What's my happiness level or my energy level? Is it 8 out of 10 or is it a 2 out of 10? And if it's a 2 out of 10, then I've got to do something very intentional.
Yes. Yeah. There was a client that I coached with who had a blind spot around coming across as a bully in meetings because he was very passionate, big booming voice, and would get really passionate and was very smart and could intimidate people. And as we unpacked that, is that what we realized for him is that the passion would turn from passion to aggressiveness more easily than he was aware it was happening. And for him, we work it back, and the moment is when he could feel his ears getting warm. As soon as he felt his ears getting warm, it was like, dude, time out, time to go get a glass of water, time to excuse yourself if you need to walk down the hall. But no matter what, zip it at that moment, because once the redness goes from here to here, nothing is going to go well after that. Right. And as I shared previously, as you obviously know, very early in my career, I had the opportunity of working with Anthony Robbins. And what he refers to your mood as your state. It's your state. How do you feel? And I remember my wife, Leapy, who was my business partner as well, or more like I was her business partner, let's say, better way to put it at the time. And we were out with one of Tony's head trainers, and we were in her in California, and we were in her convertible, and we were going for this beautiful drive down the coast, and we're having this conversation about all of this kind of stuff. And she'd been with Tony for many, many years at that point. All of a sudden, she blurts out in the conversation, "State is everything. State is everything. How you feel is everything. It impacts everything." And Leapy and I kind of look at each other, go, "Well, yeah, right. We all know that." And then a couple months later, I was conducting a session with clients, and I was on this big whiteboard we had in our office at the time, and I'm doing all this drawing and kind of talking through the model. And all of a sudden, like, this light bulb went on for me. State is everything. State is everything, right? And so it's one thing to kind of intellectually kind of go, well, of course, our mood is really important. It does impact everything. It's another thing to get it, right? To really know how you show up affects everything that you do, right? Most of us have an override switch that if we're in that grumpy or not so grumpy mode, we can kind of elevate it a bit, but we also know that elevation only goes so far. And at some point it's going to break. So we really want to be aware of, how are we feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely makes sense. So I think about you as a leader on your worst day is what we're trying to say over here. And how do you regulate that? How do you manage your own state? State is everything, as you said, Darren, because if you're showing up in front of your team, in front of others, in front of your boss, in front of clients, you got to do something a little bit different. And again, it's about regulation, that kind of self-regulation that you need to do to get yourself in the right state.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So great. Leading yourself on your worst day. What are some of the practical tactics that you can use to self-regulate? Catch you next week where we talk about that.
Looking forward to it.